Well everyone, I said in my channel description that I'll be covering some of the good, the bad, and the mediocre content that's out there. So I might as well hold myself to the words I typed out, lest I be a hypocrite or a liar. Alright, what's the first piece of subjectively bad media I have on my list to cross off? No. No. I only have myself to blame for this, and myself alone. Everything I use is under the terms of fair use, and all that other YouTube gobbledygook. Also, minor spoiler warning, as I'm going to discuss one or two plot points in the anime. I'm Mr. J, and I got reincarnated into a slew of bad isekais. Please send help. Before I dive into the anime, I'll quickly talk about what an isekai is, as I'm pretty sure that if I don't give you context, you probably don't know what I'm going to be discussing. Translated from Japanese to English, isekai is the definition of different world. I don't know how correct my observation is going to be, but in my objective take, an isekai is a genre that involves the main protagonist being transported to another world, and they have to find a means of survival in this world, with an added objective of either saving it, getting back to their world, or making a home for themselves there. When done correctly, as long as we're following the technicalities under the definition of an isekai, it's a wonderful experience. A treat for the eyes and the soul. A world teeming with vastly untapped adventure for the protagonist. Full of challenges they must overcome to achieve happiness. However, if this is done incorrectly, you'll get a generic power fantasy, an uninteresting story, a wasted idea, and the borderline contradiction of wanting to leave that world of the creator for the sake of your own sanity. In other words, the point of creating a world is to make your audience lose themselves in it, and want to go there if they had that chance, and not leave it after 10 minutes because everything feels superficial and empty. And in my subjective opinion, I will dumb it down to this. The pieces are in place for a good world, or good characters, or good conflict, but it all falls flat on execution. With that out of the way, here's what the internet gods have told me are the hallmarks of a bad or painfully mediocre isekai.
An overpowered protagonist, a harem, little to no world building, overused JRPG terminology, and the 6-letter I word.
With the context given to you, let's talk about the anime in question. High School Prodigies Have It Easy in Another World, or HSP for short. High School Prodigies follows 7 protagonists who are the best at their professions in the world. There's politician, genius, ninja journalist, doctor, swordswoman, magician, and businessman. On a trip overseas, their plane crashes, but they manage to survive and find themselves in the world of, Free Jaeger, Fajigligland, Fjord. And I know I'm purposefully mispronouncing the name of the nation. You know why? Because it's funny, unlike the anime. Our protagonists then make a name for themselves in fee-fi-fo-fum with none of the charm, effort, or storytelling. The major problems, and by extension the points, I have with HSP is that its story, characters, and conflict are heaping piles of manure. The story of High School Prodigies feels contrived, because looking at it from a broad, subjective lens, they advance society far too quickly, and we don't see the repercussions of their meddling or advancements to the people of Fraggle Rock. We see the citizens going along with everything, and anyone who goes against them is either corrupt, greedy, or stupid. And I say all of this because a character gradually building up to or rapidly running towards a goal for society is a really interesting concept. Take these 2 examples. In Ascendance of a Bookworm, Mine has to carefully and slowly make her way towards bringing books into the hands of average citizens, fighting the nobility that wants to keep that unfair power balance, and the slow but rewarding process of making books affordable and easy to access in the medieval era. In Dr. Stone, our protagonist, Senku, is gradually speedrunning humanity's 2 million years of scientific discovery after the world reverted to the Stone Age and almost lost just about everything. In shorter terminology, the former is a slow but gradual walkthrough, and the other is a quick and easy speedrun. High School Prodigies has neither of that. To provide relatively specific detail, everything goes right for the characters, and when something doesn't go their way for once, they use their skills to magically fit the narrative. The businessman and ninja are easily able to bring down the businesses in the land of Finkelheimer, and the antagonists who run those businesses tank, and not because they depended on a product, a service, tradition, or any other financial conflict in a story. They tanked because they were inept and selfish. The genius makes factories and a power plant without any sense of buildup or urgency. The swordswoman redirects an ICBM with nothing more than her bare hands and running alongside it. And mind you, that isn't a bad thing for a character to do, but when it's not done in an epic or tasteful way, you're just watching someone yeet a missile in the other direction. The magician goes from being an illusionist to an all-powerful god. And it doesn't matter if he says they're illusions, because at this point, it looks like he's doing actual magic, and not presenting the charm and mystery that famous magicians have crafted over their lifetime. And with every passing appearance in the rickety story he makes, my suspension of disbelief falls deeper into the Marina Trench. The politician is the politician. Sure, he's the leader, but that's about it. There's nothing that makes him stand out in the story, honestly. And the doctor? Well, I'll go over that in the next portion of the video, because 10 seconds of quick exposition does not do this justice. But to summarize this portion of the video, the story felt so empty because the characters bent the world to their whim, and not the world bending the characters to make them find another solution. Also, I can't really talk about world building because there was no meaningful world building that stuck out to me. To put it bluntly, the characters are planks of wood. And with these 7 planks of wood, I have enough timber to make a cheap campfire. Captain Plankman! But in all seriousness, I'm not joking when I say they're planks of wood. None of them have any meaningful or interesting character traits. They're just one note. And unlike Dio from JoJo's Bizarre Adventures, who plays his one note masterfully, the protagonists here play their notes with a sour air. I'm throwing in 2 points of context. For the first one, imagine looking at Twitter, DeviantArt, Instagram, Snapchat, or social media platform or art forum that you can think of that some artist can post their things to. You find an artist, they have really nice art, a good attention to detail, and their relative use of anatomy practice is spot on. But what sours the whole pot is that their character is either so self-serving of a fantasy to the creator, used to mouthpiece their ideologies, or simply a means to an end that fits their narrative. With this revelation to the character, they don't exist as a person anymore. They exist as the creator's ideal self, a magnum opus presenting their twisted perception of reality. And as for the second point of context, to put it bluntly, I look like the fusion of a balding Jack Black impersonator and the cool laid-back uncle. I have a A-, B+ school record, and on a good day, I remember everything I need to do. I am the embodiment of the average protagonist, and I will play that note with pride. With all of that in mind, It relates to the fact that none of the protagonists of High School Prodigies have time to develop or build character. So we only have that one note to go off of. They're so shallow, so perfect, and they're so empty as human beings that I can't relate to them for the life of me. These characters are so far removed from the factor of relatability or likability that all I can really do is just watch planks of wood interact with more planks of wood with water balloons taped to them. And what doesn't help is when the episodes try to characterize the main protagonists. This is where my main example, and also where my problem with the Doctor character comes in. The Doctor Prodigy is the best doctor in the world, so one would assume that deep down she has a morally righteous reason to being the best, right? Nope. What she wants deep down is to kill God, because she believes God created us as weak and imperfect beings. And look, the can of worms that is human imperfection is a topic for another video. But hear me out right now when I say that we need our imperfections and faults as a species. So take my next words with a grain of salt. But in my circle of friends and family, about 3 or so people within my family are medical professionals of varying fields. About 4 are in my circle of friends and associates. Why do I say this? Because episode 11 really makes me want to be as far away from her as a restraining order would allow. For the context of this episode, the story involves a town getting sick. So the antagonist, a count, attempts to poison the sulfonamide the protagonists had made, because they weren't buying the opium he's peddling. Unfortunately for him, the Dr. Prodigy catches him in the act. Do you think she A. berated and demeaned him with the moral and ethical implications of attempting to poison the sulfonamide supply? B. Called to his desires and how poisoning the sulfonamide would result in less customers to sell his opium to? C. Used logic and reasoning to shoot down the ramifications of the opium's effectiveness to the patients? Or D. Lobotomizes a man because he didn't fall in line with her beliefs or ideals? Alright everyone, if you picked A, B, or C, you all picked the appropriate answers. And if you picked D, well you're right, but you also need to see a mental professional. Under most circumstances, I would say lobotomizing the antagonist is not okay. Unless it's a circumstance where the protagonist was doing it to save their life. So I can say with conviction that the Dr. Prodigy heavily crossed the line with the Hippocratic Oath. She didn't do it out of obligation as a doctor to save people. The Dr. Prodigy did it because she didn't like him. And here lies the problem with trying to characterize these walking floorboards. The characters are so perfect that I can't relate to or like them. With them being perfect, their ability to realistically or believably find a solution to the problem feels non-existent, because the characters easily bend the world to their needs to solve the conflict they must overcome. And when the episodes try to deepen the Prodigy's personalities, it falls flat because there's almost no time to flesh out each Prodigy, their character arc, and their conflicts. This all culminates into watching a weird garbage fire because the Prodigies have a lack of time, world building, meaningful conflict, personal development, and a lack of an interesting story working against them. And the conflict. What are you getting your hopes up for? There is no conflict. There's about as much tension in this anime as a flaccid rubber band. If my brain can't recall an instance where the characters had to face odds where they might lose, or felt severe losses on a tangible or intangible front, then I don't see any good conflict. What's funny is that the times I forget where I put my wallet and keys every few months brings out more tension and adrenaline than whatever is being presented in high school Prodigies. And as I said earlier, the Prodigies bend the world's rules, so any form of suspense is quickly lost because I know the Prodigies will just metaphorically tap dance their way out of the problem with whatever solution they come up with. This isn't to say that there's nothing of value in this train wreck of an anime. There's actually some useful messages and themes in here, like needing competition to keep businesses from growing complacent and bloated, using smoke and mirrors to build an ideal or a concept that people can latch onto for hope, growing strong enough to protect those around you, the topic and discussion of someone finding humans imperfect and flawed, and the perception of perfection, the benefits of having an information network and source of reliable information, the troubles of someone who is relatively removed from humanity and finds comfort and happiness in finding friends and companionship with others, the hardships and merits of doing your best to build a fair and just society for people to live in. I found all of this just by watching the anime and observing, analyzing, and contextualizing the information the 12 episodes presented. The ideas aren't bad, they're just in a shallow material that high schoolers are meant to consume. And if you want to use what I found, go for it. I'm not stopping you. Ideas and concepts are many. The numerous facets that make up those concepts are simply the tools and materials anyone can shape into something meaningful. High School Prodigies may be a shallow, targeted piece of entertainment for a specific demographic of teenagers, but underneath all the fluff, there's a good toolkit of themes and ideas to tinker around with. I just don't really want to go back to it unless I have to, because Power Rangers chipped away at some of the remaining half of my soul, and I'd like to have some semblance of my humanity left. But you know what? Since I mentioned Dr. Stone in the video, I'll talk about that anime next time. And yes, I'm stretching the term a bit, but I consider Dr. Stone to be an isekai. It's my channel, my rules.
Ugh, am I done yet? Ugh, good.
I'm Mr. J. Have a day. My brain hurts, so I'm going night-night.